All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions. We got another book review, another book review here for you. I know I was kind of late. I've been grinding, and unfortunately, I still don't have a Bluetooth speaker. I'm in a new location, so should be a good one. I got a bunch of notes here for you. Today's book is Anarchism and Other Essays by Emma Goldman. Emma Goldman is an absolute legend. She was a real feminist, and I say that in context to Mark Passio's work. Passio did a presentation on the difference between feminism and Neo-Feminism. It is titled "The Unholy Feminine: Neo-Feminism and the Satanic Epi-Eugenics Agenda." It's absolutely free on his website, What on Earth is Happening, and on YouTube. I highly recommend that you tune into that. I'll put it I'll put a link in the description. So I'm gonna get started here. Emma, she was never afraid to speak her mind against the injustices against the state. Even she was jailed for quote-unquote inciting a riot when she addressed almost 3,000 unemployed Americans at Union Square in New York in 1916. And I think this book was written in 1917. I should have looked that up. Dun dun dun. Or not written in 1917. It was produced in 1917. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. This was a time when women were not allowed to vote back then, and they were expected to just, stay at home and raise children, that type of role. She never fought for so-called voting rights because she knew that voting would never change the flaws of a tyrannical system built on slavery. The FBI labeled her as the most dangerous woman in America, and also a judge infamously labeled her as an undesirable alien, which I thought was really interesting. Goldman traveled across. The media painted her as a negative person, an enemy of the state, as they say. Man, I wish I had the soundboard. She traveled across the pond and she earned 2 degrees in midwifery and put them to use immediately in the States because there wasn't a lot of people taking that role back in the day, which is actually kind of intense if you think about it. She was known by her peers as a free-thinking rebel woman. What sparked her love of anarchy was the Haymarket riots in Chicago. Oh, I forgot. Which reminded me of, there's a band called Squared Off who I had the pleasure of opening up for. They wrote a song about the Haymarket riot. And so it's an amazing song. It's like one of my favorite songs ever. I really wanted to get Squared Off as Skatopia. Maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens. So the first chapter is Anarchism, what it really stands for. It's chapter 1. The etymology of anarchy, meaning the origin and historical development of a linguistic form as shown by determining its basic elements, earliest known use, and changes in form and meaning, tracing its transformation from one language to another, identifying its cognates in other languages, and reconstructing its ancestral form where possible. So that's what etymology means. And etymology is so important. I say it on this channel all the time. You can't study enough of etymology. That's where words really come from, and that's where that's where the foundation of words come from, and root words and things like that. So the etymology of anarchy is from the Greek prefix "an," meaning without or the absence of, and the Greek noun archon, which means master or ruler. So anarchy literally means the absence of rulers, despite what people may say, especially in the media. I know Trump recently called out anarchists, which is absolutely ridiculous. Anarchy does not mean chaos. It's a misconception. But if you look up anarchy in most dictionaries, it says the state of, and then it says blah 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 blah. So according to the state, I guess you could say, anarchy, which is the absence of masters or rulers. I get, according to the state, that could mean chaos, so you could relate to that. It's ridiculous, which is, again, that's why it's so important to study etymology, because you really find out where these words come from and their origins. So I put it in those. So if you're on an island with no rulers, what do you have? You have freedom. That's what freedom is. You know, freedom is people say freedom is the ability to respond. If you don't have the ability to respond, that's definitely not freedom. So, in the first chapter, Emma writes of how people view anarchy, which is typically from a view of ignorance. When asking somebody about anarchy, 99% of the time, they won't give you the correct answer on the definition, and they will spew out some regurgitated garbage they heard from a politician or an authority figure. You know, and as somebody I used to have a vehicle that had an anarchy symbol right on the hood, and yeah, like police they really did not like that. We would get I got pulled over all the time. I was driving, one time I was driving 1:30 in the morning, I was driving home from work, and a police officer pulling out of a Wendy's, because what else is there to do when you're a police officer, apparently, is to sit on a laptop and eat fast food. Pulled out 1:30 in the morning. I crossed the line over, and he was shining his spotlight on all of the stickers that I had on the van. While he was in the lane behind me, he was in the right lane behind me. I was in the left lane because I was turning left, and he was like driving, shining the spotlight. Anyways, it's talk about unsafe driving. He pulled me over for unsafe driving while he was driving with his spotlight directly in all of my mirrors. I couldn't see it. Couldn't see anything. So, here's our first quote. Anarchism represents to the unthinking what the proverbial bad man does to the child. A black monster bent on swallowing everything. In short, destruction and violence. Destruction and violence. How is the ordinary man to know that the most violent element in society is ignorance? That its power of destruction is the very thing that anarchism is combating. Page 2. Her writing is so articulate, and it's very dense, and her, like, going from the last book review, which is the gold standard, going from that book to this it's so much different. It's so much, because like the way that Ari Gold wrote that book, it wasn't very intelligent. The way Emma Goldman writes and speaks, I want to look up some of her speeches. I wish I had the Bluetooth speaker, so I would even play, because she was just so intelligent, very intelligent. You can tell by the way that she writes. So Goldman goes on to define what anarchism is, and this is the definition of anarchism from the book. Anarchism, the philosophy of a new social order based on liberty unrestricted by man-made law. The theory that all forms of government rest on violence and are therefore wrong and harmful, as well as unnecessary. That's a direct quote from page 3, and I absolutely agree. There's nothing I disagree with in that quote. There are some things that I disagree with in the book, but her definition of anarchism it's spot on. Okay. She cleverly compares man's modern-day gods, which are God or religion, the state, and she also even says society is God's. Society being like, how many men or so-called men worry about the opinions of others? That's society. Worry about the opinions of others, or are shallow in like who they date or who they decide to go with. I think that's what she means when she says society is one of man's modern day gods. I would also add money, but that again, that could be categorized as society, because society loves money. We always talk about it on Crazy Life Stories, on the podcast. We always talk about that. Society is obsessed with money, just like they are obsessed. They're not obsessed with sex. Like Mark Passio says, they're obsessed with the idea of sex, and same thing with money. Actually, now I think about it, comparing these things because they all give us the individual the idea that man is nothing and the powers are everything. And you hear it all the time. You know, you hear it all the time. Just as soon as you leave your house, you hear it at work, you hear it at church. You know, what can I do to change the law? I'm just one man. Paying insurance sucks, but it's the law. We all have to pay. You know, these generic, cheesy, dumb things to justify immoral, literal immoral slavery. I don't make the rules. I just enforce them. God, I hate... speaking of cops, I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. Or time is money. You know, you hear time is money all the time. All the time. Time is money all the time, right? Equating spiritual currency to the material, right? Spiritual currency being time and attention. You spend time and pay attention. That's the spiritual currency. But people always say, time is money. Oh, I need more money, money, money. So here's another quote. Anarchism is the only philosophy which brings to man the consciousness of himself, which maintains that God, the state, and society are non-existent, that their promises are null and void, since they can be fulfilled only through man's subordination. Anarchism is therefore the teacher of the unity of life, page 4. So then we get to chapter 2, which is minorities versus majorities. And I just want to say, you can find this book. This book is, the audiobook is in public domain. So I think you can find the audiobook on archive.org, or if you're kind of lazy like me, it's on Spotify for free. It's on YouTube for free. So there's no reason, if you haven't read this book, if you haven't heard of this book, there is no reason for you not to read it. You know, like seriously. I mean, I listened to the audiobook about 3 or 4 times while I was even playing video games until, until like Morris the Kid sent me an invite, and I couldn't really. And even then, sometimes I was still grinding with Morris the Kid and still listening to the audiobook. It's easily accessible. You know, use the internet for good. Stop using the internet to be for degeneracy, like what Jay Dyer says. So chapter 2, minorities versus majorities. Chapter 1 already discussed the fallacy of voting, and in the second chapter, Goldman goes deeper into the why. Right? You hear that all the time on the One Great Work Network. We have to find the why. Politics take away anything to do with the individual. Political parties not only manipulate each other, but also the public into thinking that one choice is better than the other. The very definition of a Hegelian dialectic, where both choices lead to the same slaughterhouse, while us, the citizen or the individual, is stuck choosing the lesser of two evils. That's another cheesy. We have to choose the lesser of two evils. Well, when you choose the lesser of two evils, you're still participating in evil, which is ridiculous, and it's the height of ignorance. What happens when a politician breaks man's law or goes against the state? Are they punished in public square and made a mockery of? Does the guilty, immoral politician learn their lesson and become a better human being if they are punished? No and no. What happens if you or another sovereign individual breaks the arbitrary dictates of man's law? And I talked about that in another book review, Freedom Through Memedom. You know, it gave the list of like what you could do as an individual and what a politician could do and get away with it. You know, as an individual, can you kidnap people? Can you force people to work and then take 10% out of their paycheck? You know, it's like, can you do that as an individual? What if you did that to somebody? What if you pulled somebody over as an individual and you used your little spotlight and you pulled somebody over and said, you are a danger to the state, you need to give me $1,000 and go to jail? You know, like, what if you did that as an individual? You would be locked up, you would be thrown in jail, you'd probably go to prison for kidnapping, but if the state does it, it's no problem, right? If the state kidnaps you, takes your money away, no harm, no foul, right? Like, it's just so ridiculous. Just like, for example, Trump was convicted with Jeffrey Epstein. There's literally a court case. You can look. I speak about it all the time. It's a court case, and most Trump people, of course, most people who voted Trump, they don't even know about it. They're like, oh, he got busted with Jeffrey Epstein, and if they do know about it, they say it's not true, right? But even though everything that comes out of Trump's mouth is an absolute lie, but they believe that. Like, it's, oh my gosh, it's just, it's such a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's hypocrisy. It's Hegelian dialectic. It's stupidity. It's absolute stupidity. So Trump was convicted with Jeffrey Epstein, and then 2 months ago he was just on a presidential debate, spoon-feeding so-called patriots more lies than he's ever said in his entire career. Because he recently did a speech at the Libertarian Party, and the speech was absolutely Larkin Rose shout out to Larkin Rose. Larkin Rose broke it down. He did a really good video of it. Go look it up. Larkin Rose, he wrote the amazing 10 out of 10 book that's short and sweet, just like this. Very short book, you know, a few hundred, less than 200 pages, but all of the information is so powerful. It really, you know, The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose really packs a punch, just like this one by Emma Goldman. I still see people claiming that they still, you know, they'll proudly vote for this scumbag, this lying scumbag. He's a, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube. He's you know, he's a disgusting pervert. They all the politicians are. They're all like, ugh, they're gross. They're gross. You know, as to quote Entourage, you can see the grease running through their fingers, sliming down their arms, you know? The next quote is timeless, as this book has aged really gracefully. So, never before did the corruption, the complete rottenness of our government stand so thoroughly exposed. Again, aged so well after the scamdemic and all this stuff that's happened. I'm going off on a tangent. So thoroughly exposed. Never before were the American people brought face to face with the Judas nature of the political body, which is claimed for years to be absolutely beyond reproach as the mainstay of our institutions, the true protector of the rights and liberties of the people. Yet when the crimes of that party become so brazen that even the blind could see them, it needed but to muster up its minions, and its supremacy was assured. Thus, the very victims, duped, betrayed, outraged 100 times, decided not against, but in favor of the victor. Bewildered, the few asked, how could the majority betray its traditions of American liberty? Where was its judgment, its reasoning capacity? That's just it. The majority cannot reason. It has no judgment, lacking utterly in originality and moral courage. The majority has always placed its destiny in the hands of others. There's direct quote from page 13. Again, that is so powerful, and it's absolutely timeless. Bewildered the few ask, how could the majority betray its traditions? And again, we do it like another election's coming, you know, elections coming up, and we're like, who's running anymore? Who cares? It's just like sports, you know. It's like whoever's gonna win is already decided. It's already decided way in advance. You know, like, and people are still just like going out and voting and talking, voting for scumbags who take their rights away on a daily basis. It's hypocrisy. I wish I had the soundboard. I really need a soundboard. Eventually. I've been grinding in real life, not just grinding video games. So, hopefully, get rent paid. I'll order another speaker. So, Chapter 3, The Psychology of Political Violence. Goldman recalls acts of history where usually non-violent loving men are driven to extreme acts of danger and sometimes violence due to the pressure, but also how society treats these men who are driven to such acts. And then, again, this reminds me of the Haymarket riots. To go back to that, study the Haymarket riots, because what happened during those riots were so important. People started taking action, you know. Falsely labeling men with strong agape in their hearts as violent terrorists who need to be taught a lesson. To this day, looking back on the actions of these men, on the actions that these men have taken, modern-day anarchists are still looked down upon as naive youth who haven't fully grown up. Yet the book refers to men like Leon Segoles, Lazarus Averbach, and Alexander Berkman, to name a few. Psychology is a vast topic, so I unfortunately don't have the time to extrapolate on this chapter, but it is intriguing and worth looking into these historical events. And I just want to say, it reminds me of the song, the Subhuman song. What is it? Ex-Teenage Rebel. The Subhuman song, Ex-Teenage Rebel. It's a punk rock song if you're into punk rock. Look up that song, Ex-Teenage Rebel, because you know, a lot of these people in the skinhead scene, in the so-called punk rock scene, in the oi scene, like I know a lot of people who started out as punks, and then as they got older, they became like ois. You know, they call themselves oi skinheads. But then they call themselves skinheads, but then they'll still vote for Trump. And I'm talking skinheads. Like, skinheads are sharps, which SHARP stands for Skinhead Against Racial Prejudice. And then, dude, I've been in bands with some of these people who are so-called skinheads, so-called sharps, Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice, and they still turn around and vote for Trump because, oh, it's the lesser of two evil. Like, whether you're going to vote for Bernie, whether you're voting for Trump, your right of voting does not exist. You don't have the right to vote for somebody else to have power over you or your neighbor. It's an immoral fallacy. You're a liar, you're a hypocrite, and there's so many fake-ass punks, now I'm cussing, there's so many fake-ass punks who voted for Trump just because, oh, there's no other choice, oh. It's deplorable, it's sickening, you know, and then they write songs about how they love freedom, and it doesn't make any sense. So, Chapter 4, Prisons, a Social Crime and Failure. This chapter begins with a tale titled The Priest and the Devil, and here's a great quote about it. And the story is really good. The short story it's amazing. This was written 50 years ago in dark Russia on the wall of one of the most horrible prisons. Yet who can deny that the same applies with equal force to the present time, even to American prisons? With all our boasted reforms, our great social changes, and our far-reaching discoveries, human beings continue to be sent to the worst of hells, wherein they are outraged, degraded, and tortured so that society may be protected from the phantoms of its own making. That's a direct quote from page 37. Again, so powerful, and again, so timeless. I mean, the prison system it's a microcosm of slavery, of the slavery that exists. Like what, you know, now I sound like Dennis Gilmore. Shout out to Dennis Gilmore, like he said on the podcast all the time. It's just merely a microcosm of the macrocosm, is what the prison industry is. She goes on to write that at the time of this book, it cost $1,095,000 a year to run prisons. In present day, just in America, in present day, 2024, just in America, we are over $80 billion a year to keep immoral scumbags. I mean, some of them are immoral scumbags. Some of them just did the wrong drug and got into some trouble and got busted. You know? $80 billion a year in America alone. I know a lot of people who've been in jail and prisons and they've never recovered. Like one of my best friends, I'm not going to mention his name, I'm not going to call him out like that, but yeah, seemingly to this day, it seems like he never recovered. Once he got into prison, he just like went farther down into drugs because of the way that the prison systems are. They're not, you know, they're not comfortable, even if you are a non-violent, you know, you just got busted with some paraphernalia or something, you can go to prison for a couple of years. Once you come out, it almost seems like 90% of the time the person is never the same person. Like they're a shell, they're a husk of what they used to be when they go into these places. They have never recovered. Like it says in the book, these institutions boast that they train the inmates to reintegrate into society easily after the sentence is served, but nothing can be farther from the truth. When an individual enters prison, it goes on their permanent record in finding work. Finding work becomes next to impossible, deeming them basically quote-unquote worthless to society. And a lot of times these guys have to work for sketchy people that pay under the table. And guess what? If your boss is an immoral scumbag and he doesn't want to pay you, he doesn't have to pay you because there's no, there's no protection. You're getting paid under the table. It's not like you can, there's no paper trail to where you can get these guys busted and get some of your money back or all your money back. But a lot of times you don't get any of your money back. I was even I've worked for one of these dudes before because my brothers were my brothers are, yeah. So if your boss decides to be an immoral scumbag, he doesn't have to pay you. The former inmate loses his well-being and has to start all over again. So then you have to find work, and by finding work you have to go on Craigslist or find, odd jobs, cash under the table jobs. And that's if you can get lucky enough to even find one that'll pay you. I've seen it happen countless amounts of times. You also have corporations like Goodwill that boast that they help inmates. They boast that they help inmates to the public, but they do nothing. Most Goodwills, they hire people with disabilities, or they hire old farts that should have retired 8 years ago, but live in this joke of society. So retirement is basically impossible, and they still have to go to work just to be able to afford to pay their rent, which is, even rent is a whole nother, don't get me started on rent. So with nowhere to turn, the ex-con, usually homeless, returns to crime, theft, or addiction, and society chews these people up and spits them out. While inside prison walls, there is the option of becoming a trustee, which exploits the inmate, paying a measly 40 to 70 cents a day, and that's still, to this day, it's still only 40 to 70 cents a day, depending on the state, while charging, they'll charge you $1.20 for a ramen noodle soup, right? So you work all day, work your butt off all day for 70 cents, and you can't even afford a pack of ramen soup. Then you gotta hit up the trustee, right? D-Peasy? D-Peasy, hit up the trustee for some ice. Shout out to D-Peasy, man. I'm proud of you, D-Peasy. Thank you. Thank you. D-Peasy is a legend, if you guys know who I'm talking about. He's the guy. Is it bussin' or disgussin'? D-Peasy is one of the few people who actually turned his life around, Shout out. And another great YouTuber, his name is Uncle Larry Lawton. He always talks about the injustices of modern day prisons. He even wrote a book, and Larry, your book is on the list of book reviews. I would love to have you sign it and send it. If you can sign one, send it over. Like I said, I have to pay rent. So hopefully I can buy his book immediately and get it signed. I want to do The Musical Truth Volume 2 by Mark Devlin, but again, I'm not... The only way I'm going to do that book review is if I order The Musical Truth Volume 2 and have Mark Devlin sign it. Mark Devlin's such a legend, and Larry Lawton is a legend too. So, the prison system is a perfect example of modern day slavery and the vicious cycle of profit over people. As long as there is a soul in prison, I am not free. That's an awesome band from Michigan, Rent Strike. I don't know if you can find that song anymore. You can find that song on Facebook, but it's kind of tough to find. That's one of their original old songs from back in the day. So then we get to the chapter called, this is a really good chapter, called Patriotism, a Menace to Liberty. This chapter can perfectly be summed up in one quote. Yep, and I only wrote one quote to talk about this chapter. Here it is. The usual contention is that we need a standing army to protect the country from foreign invasion. Every intelligent man and woman knows, however, that this is a myth maintained to frighten and coerce the foolish. The governments of the world, knowing each other's interests, do not invade each other. They have learned that they can gain much more by international arbitration of disputes than by war and conquests. Indeed, as Carlyle said, war is a quarrel between two thieves, too cowardly to fight their own battle. Therefore, they take boys from one village and another village, stick them into uniforms, equip them with guns, and let them loose like wild beasts against each other. Page 49. I mean, I can shut the camera off right there. But we're going to keep going. Again, that's an amazing, powerful, timeless quote. This book is 10 out of 10. And there are a lot of YouTubers who are too cowardly to be, oh, I agree with this and that, but I am not an anarchist because I want YouTube's money. But grow a pair. Just grow a pair, dude. Grow a pair. I'm not gonna call them out, but grow a pair, dude. I saw a few book reviews on this book, and they were almost every single one of them. I'm not an anarchist. Whatever. So the next chapter, Francisco Ferrer and the Modern School. This chapter discusses Francisco Ferrer and how his life was tragically cut short. Reading through this reminded me of the Crass book from the band Crass, another book review. Go back and watch that book review, and then go back and find that book. The Last of the Hippies. What happened to Francisco made me want to do more research on his life. I'm sure I will in the future. I definitely will. Hold me to that, internet. You will get emotionally charged on this chapter, reminding me of why it is so important to study history. Yet, speaking of modern school, no school in public education teaches about this man. I am a product of public education. I am not homeschooled. My little sister is luckily homeschooled, but I was not. I had to go to public school. Goldman also writes of other legends that worked with Ferrer that are also worth studying. The chapter is really good. An amazing chapter. Francisco Ferrer seems like a legend, but like I said, I need to do more research. Women's suffrage. What is suffrage? So again, this chapter is so timeless. It's just so good. Suffrage is the right or the privilege. I would put those backwards. For me, suffrage is the privilege or the quote-unquote right of voting, and we've already discussed that. If you really understand what the definition of a right is, you understand that, yeah, the right, whatever, total BS. Goldman begins this chapter like a roaring lion, to quote Brandon Martin, taking no prisoners, writing that Christianity would really be wiped out by now if it were not for the support this black hole receives from women. That's what Emma Goldman said. That's her words. Christianity would be wiped out if it were not for the support of women. I lost my spot. Writing that, Christianity. Yep, the military also falls under that truth. Yeah, again, so many women. I know so many women in my life, and like I know a lot of women who brag about being a quote-unquote military brat. Like that's a something to put on your sleeve, and right, like it's a virtue to be a military brat in a military family. What a joke, dude. You have no idea what a right is, and you're a clown shoes. Now I'm starting to sound like Mark Passio. You're a clown shoes. You're a dunce. Where's my clown horn? I need a clown horn like he has, dude. So here's another powerful quote. The insatiable monster, war, robs women of all that is dear and precious to her. It exacts her brothers, lovers, sons, and in return gives her a life of loneliness and despair. To this day, and worshippers of war, yet the greatest supporter and worshipper of war is woman. She it is who whispers the glories of war into the ears of her little ones, and who rocks her baby to sleep with the tunes of trumpets and the noise of guns. It is women, too, who crowns the victor in his return from the battlefield, yet it is women who pays the highest price to that insatiable monster, war. Page 85. Again, I could shut the camera off right there. That is... Man, I could write a YouTube short with that, with that quote. So powerful, so much truth in it. Man, like, Emma Goldman's such a legend. Shout out to Emma Goldman. I'm gonna drink some Dubby. This Dubby's for Emma. I can't wait to order some more Dubby. This is my last container of Dubby right here. I'm running very low. But again, hopefully I'll get a good speaker. I'll get some more Dubby at the next check. After rent's paid, I'm very excited. So Emma then goes on to compare the home to a modern day prison with gold bars. And I talked about this on Crazy Life Stories with Matt Bennett. The most recent episode, because we got Crazy Life Stories, is back in full swing. Which reminded me of an amazing hardcore band called Kharma. They have a song called Slave to Society. And in that song, they say, your 9 to 5 might as well be a F-bombing jail, which is so true. I mean, the whole song, the lyrics are really good. Kharma is a very intelligent band. They get it, as what my friend Alex would say. Not Alex Jones, my friend, banjo playing Alex. Yeah, that's so true. The song is just genius. It's 10 out of 10. I'll put a link to this song in the description, and then, so that's it. That's all the notes I got. I could talk about this book for days. There is so much good knowledge to be found in this book right here. It's so good. Look it up. Look it up. Like I said, you can find the PDF for absolutely free. This book is old enough, because, like I said, it's from 1917. It's old enough where it is in public domain, and it's 10 out of 10. I don't know what else to say. This book is 10 out of 10, just like not Crazy Life Stories, Drifter Diaries from my man Matt Bennett. 10 out of 10, so good. I really wish I had the speaker for the outro, but the next book is going to be 13, Volume 1, The Day of the Black Sun. 13 is a man who wakes up on the beach with no memory of who he is and no clue about his identity, save a mysterious tattoo that simply says 13. But when 13 is attacked by 2 would-be killers determined to take him out, he dispatches them easily with reflexive military training, which helps him to realize that he is more than a simple man with amnesia. Now 13 must uncover the secrets of his past. And learn who he really is and what his mission was before he lost his memory. But along the way, he will learn that he may have been responsible for killing the President of the United States and working for enemies who have intentions far beyond his simple quest to remember who he is. So, I've only beat the game from 2003. The game from 2003 is also 10 out of 10. The video game is so good. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, I'm going to talk like Trump. Use my Trump voice. 13 from 2023 is so good. Don't play the remake. Don't spend your money on the remake, even if you can buy it for $2. Just go and buy the original. And if you can't find the original 13 video game, just don't even worry about it. So this is going to be the next one. Nice and easy. I'll be able to blow through it, hopefully. And, yeah, because for those who don't know, I just moved. I'm at a new location. I'm in a new state. So, yeah. Stay tuned. Stick around for 13. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you if you made it this far. If you want to support the channel, use code BeagleEyeVision at w.gg. Get 10% off your purchase. Get yourself some clean, sugar-free, no artificial flavor game fuel. Made in America. Made in America right there. So if you want to support the promised land and the channel, I guess, you know. Or there's also Cash App. You can Cash App Beagle Eye. And I will use that money very wisely. Oh, the same song's playing over again. Oh, and it says my Amazon package was delivered. So, thank you, Emma Goldman. This book is absolutely incredible. It's literally 10 out of 10. It's the best. If you haven't read this book, shame on you. Shame, 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 shame. Shame on you. There's no reason to not read this. Like, you can find this book, download it on your phone, assuming you have an Android, because iPhones are trash. You can't really control files on an iPhone. But, yeah, it's amazing. And I think I got this book for less than $10. So even if you want the physical copy of the book like me, you know, I love the physical copies. You can find it at less than $10. Shoot, I should look it up right now. But anyways, I have to go back to work tomorrow to be a slave, and my woe man will be getting off work. in about an hour. So I have an hour to play Fortnite. Look up. Be sure you're watching the grinding series, the grinding on Beagle Eye Vision that I've been doing of Maneater. It's been good stuff. Got some good comments. All right, stay tuned. Stay golden, everybody. Thank you again if you made it this far. All right, peace.